Welcome to A Woman's Heart. I believe this is going to be a rich conversation. We have Deena Adams with us today. Thanks so much for joining us today, Deena.
Hi, Lisa. Thanks for having me. I'm really thrilled to be here.
Yes, I am excited to have you. And for anyone, we've just had a delightful conversation about our hometowns because it turns out we are not that far away from one another, which is
Nope.
very unusual for me. We're just kind of up the road from one another. So sharing about that and thoroughly enjoyed seeing some of the towns and markers that you mentioned in your book that I recognized,
hmm
which we are going to get to. But first of all, I would love the chance to get to know you a little better, let my audience get to know you a little bit better. So share something about yourself and something fun that isn't normally in your bio.
Okay. Well, first of all, I guess I'll say I'm married. My husband and I met in the eighth grade, and
Oh, wow.
we dated all through high school except for our senior year. The only date we had our senior year was prom.
Oh,
So after graduation, my husband could not stand to be without me. So he joined the Navy to get away from me. And when I found out that he was leaving town, I'm like, oh, wait a minute, maybe I do want him. And so we got back together, we got engaged, and we married that December. So we've been married now coming up on 45 years in December. So we have three married children, we have seven grandchildren. 2 years before my husband's military retirement, God called us to plant a church, which we did in Chesapeake, Virginia, and we are still serving there today. That started in 1999. So we've been here quite a while.
yes, you have.
And maybe a fun thing, I tried to think about this like, okay, so in the Navy for 20 years, we moved a lot, probably around 12 times.
Oh,
And we
that's about
moved four times in the first year.
right.
And
Oh,
so, yes, our three children were born in New York, Washington State, and Florida. So, three corners of the US. I said we just
yes.
needed one in California to round it out, but that never happened. So, wasn't
Oh,
meant to be.
yes. Yeah, just about almost the four corners of the
That's
US
right.
there. Oh,
Yeah,
my goodness. Wow. Well, that is interesting. All of mine were born here in Williamsburg, so
hmm
I can't point to all those different dots and
yeah.
such with mine. But you mentioned that your husband and you got into ministry, and that kind of played into the book. And so this is your debut
Yes.
novel, correct?
Yes.
And you really wanted to show you have a lot of serious topics in this book, and a lot of people shy away from one or two of them. They certainly aren't going to tackle all of them in the same
Yes.
book. So why did you really want to just go ahead and tackle a lot of these difficult topics and make sure you say the name of the book and when it's releasing?
Okay. So the book is Stronger Than the Storm, and that's the third title that it's had since it was
Okay.
first written. I wrote the first draft of this book in 2019, and I just started writing novels in 2018. So I still was really new, did not know what I was doing. And so I had a hot mess. And so it's taken me several years of training and learning how to write to fix the book. And when you ask, why did I tackle all of these hard topics? I didn't set out to do that. It wasn't like, oh, I really want to write this book and talk about abuse and, secrets and marital struggles and, prodigal children and all the things that are in the book. But it was really what God put on my heart to write. I've always um, loved movies, books, television shows that are based on or inspired by true stories. I'm really drawn to those things. And I think as a Christian and as a pastor's wife, I've talked to so many women who have marital problems, who have prodigal children, who, have husbands addicted to pornography or whatever the issue might be, women who've been abused, not necessarily just physical abuse, but emotional, mental abuse, all kind of things. And, I just want to put something out there that's going to matter, that is going to reach women where they are
Mm-hmm.
and offer hope for them that it doesn't have to stay this way. There's redemption, there's help, there's healing, and all of those things. So I feel like God just leads me in this direction. I used to want to be a biblical counselor, and
Oh, okay.
I talked to a lot of women as a non-official counselor over the years. People, for some reason, just come to me with their problems and talk with them about it. And I have a lot of personal history with some things that I feel like I can relate and share what I've learned. And so that's a lot about what this book is about, because a lot of it comes from my personal experience as a mom of a prodigal and a ministry wife and those type things. So
Yeah. Well, and why did you choose fiction over nonfiction? Because there are two very different styles of writing and going
mhm.
about it. Because there are other nonfiction books about these topics, and then, but you chose to write fiction. So why did
Mhm.
you choose to write this as a fiction book?
When I felt like God was first calling me to write, I didn't really know what I was going to write. We had just gone through a really difficult relationship breakup with our best friends and ministry partners in the church.
Hmm.
We had just a horrible parting of ways, and that was in 2016. So for 2 years, I just really struggled with depression and grief. I mean, it was a grieving process to
Yeah.
lose that type of a close connection with someone.
Yeah.
And so after 2 years of just wallowing in the pit, I finally went to a counselor and just to talk about my feelings, because
Hmm.
I couldn't talk about it with people at church,
Yeah.
because my husband's pastor. You just can't really say what's really happening.
Hmm.
And so I went to a counselor to talk, and she said to me, then you need to find something for you that you will enjoy doing, a passion for you. And so I'm like, okay. So I looked all over, and I'm an introvert. And so I seen all these things like join this kayaking group or join. I'm like, uh,
No,
no, that's not happening.
that would be for my
So,
daughter.
right. So it's like, okay, what could I do? And writing was one thing I've always been interested in. I've always loved it, but I never seriously pursued trying to really like write and be published. And so I didn't really even set out to do that. I just started writing, checking into it. And it's like, okay, God, do you want me to write fiction, nonfiction, poetry? Am I just supposed to journal? Like, what? And I went, found a bunch of free stuff online. And I did this assessment and answered a lot of questions that help you kind of narrow down what you might enjoy writing.
Hmm.
And because I've been an avid reader my whole life, and I love, love, love fiction. And I just love stories, because
Yeah.
Jesus spoke in stories. His
Hmm.
parables, are stories,
Yeah. Yeah.
just using everyday things that are around you. And so after taking this assessment, it was like, okay, I think I'm going to write fiction. I'm going to write a novel. Doggone it, I'm going to write a novel,
There you go.
So I just decided it. And then I was looking online, and I saw this thing called NaNoWriMo, where it's National Novel Writing Month, where you write 50,000 words in a month.
Oh,
And I
okay.
thought, okay, I'm going to do that. And so I just sat down at my computer and started writing a novel on November 1st of 2018. And I got my 50,000 words in 3 weeks. And 4 months later, I had a finished 120,000 word manuscript, hot
Wow.
mess. So I started going to conferences and learning and just soaking everything in, really from a fire hydrant for, quite a
Yeah.
few years. And I just
Mhm.
love fiction. I believe that fiction can break down barriers and reach people in a way that nonfiction can't.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
I don't know. I just feel like stories are more non-threatening. And plus, I'm not a very well-known person. So for people to buy your nonfiction, to get a contract for nonfiction and all of that, you have to have a pretty large platform before they'll even look at your
Yeah.
proposal.
Mhm.
And so I thought fiction is a better way to go for me anyway. and
Yeah.
that's right in my wheelhouse. So,
Yeah, well, and I agree that a lot of times in a story, like a fiction story, you can get lessons and you can tackle topics and you can tackle subjects. And you know, in still, that's maybe the
mhm,
best word, a lessons in there without be necessarily being preachy or like
yes.
with nonfiction. And I do remember telling somebody I was reading a nonfiction book, which was good, and I wanted to learn more about that topic, but I read it differently. I'm reading
Hmm.
it to really try to absorb and learn and study and look at the lines, and I read it a
Hmm.
lot slower.
Hmm.
Whereas with a story like with yours,
Hmm.
I'm reading the story. I get caught up in the story. So it's not so much that I'm trying to look for quotable lines or anything out of it, but that it's just that I'm looking for the story, and then the lesson kind of sneaks in the back
Hmm.
door. And as I mentioned to you as I was reading this, it very much reads like a real family.
Hmm.
And you indicate there are elements. It is a fiction story, but there are elements and feelings and
Yes.
such that were very real
Hmm.
in
Yes.
your life. And so how was that when you were writing this story? And it is fiction, but there's some very real things in there that you've had to wrestle with in
Yes.
there. And so how is that connecting with the characters and kind of finding that line between, okay, this is the fiction, but it is very real, very much a real
Hmm.
feeling.
Yeah. So the book is based on, inspired by our season with a prodigal daughter. And oddly enough, this year is the 20th anniversary of our daughter running away from home.
Uh-huh.
So I thought how appropriate that my book is launching on the 20th anniversary of that event. But that was probably one of the hardest things I've ever been through in my life,
Mhm.
for our daughter to. So one part of the book that is very real is in the very beginning of the book. The daughter runs away without a word. There is no warning, really. There's no, um, there's a little argument with them in the beginning of the book that kind of precipitates her, like, but that didn't happen with our daughter. There was no warning, zero warning for her to run away. I mean, literally that weekend, she just went to visit a friend, actually in Williamsburg. She
Okay.
went to visit a friend and didn't come home and cut off communication. And she was fine when she left. We said goodbye. We said, "Hey, see you Sunday," you know. And it was just a snap, spur of the moment decision that her friend talked her into doing. But in the book, somebody said, "Truth is stranger than fiction." So in the novel, it has to be believable. So
Yeah.
nobody's going to believe that this girl just ran away for no reason. So you have to give her a reason.
Yeah.
So I did,
Mhm.
which that's not true. But anyway, it's, I started out kind of writing it a little too closely to what really happened. And
Okay.
I went to a retreat, a writer's retreat a couple of years ago. Lisa Carter, some of your listeners may know who she is. She's a Christian fiction author. And I was talking about the story and telling her a little bit about it. And she was saying, "Well, you need this, you need a conflict here, you need whatever." And I'm like, "But that's not how it happened." She said, "Well, are you writing your story or are you writing the whole Brooks story?" And I'm like,
Mhm.
hmm, she's got a really good point there. And I
Yeah.
realized in that moment that I was trying to write my story into that book, and this needed to be fiction. And so I went back, completely changed the beginning of the book, and just started reworking some elements to make it more fictional.
Mhm.
But like I said, there are the daughter running away, being that prodigal, coming home 6 weeks later, finding out she's pregnant, which is not really a huge spoiler because that happens really early on.
Yeah.
She comes back pregnant, and it's a ministry family, which, we are a ministry family. So there are a lot of elements that are true, and a lot of the emotions, I think, play in there. When my content editor was going through it, on most of the parts where she commented and said, "Oh, I love this so much. This is so real. This is so whatever." Just about every one of those was, we really went through that. That really happened.
Yeah.
So I think in those parts that the emotion that I experienced 20 years ago
Hmm.
really came through. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you mentioned in the book and for yourself as a ministry family, you don't necessarily have to be in a ministry family to be very aware that as parents, we will often be judged by our children's decisions.
yes.
And that's really hard
Hmm.
because it's not just in some cases it may be that the child may have a learning diversity or they may have some other health issues. There may be some extenuating circumstances that are completely beyond the parent's
Hmm.
control that cause a child to look, behave, do certain things. But then as teenagers, it's like, okay, they're exercising their free will, and you can
Hmm.
be a very good parent, and they get pulled in, they make one decision which turns into another, but then as parents, we're judged for it, and it can be very, very difficult to separate our
Hmm.
identity as a parent
Yes.
and our being a good mom or a good
Hmm.
wife in light of some of the decisions. And what were
Hmm.
some of the lessons that you learned and how did you kind of work through that? Because I think there's that extra fishbowl quality when you're in
Hmm.
ministry of, oh, your kids are supposed to somehow turn out perfectly if you're good parents, but that's not
Hmm.
always true.
Yeah, that was a big, big issue that I had to wrestle with because I think being in the ministry, you live in a fishbowl and
Mhm.
everyone just kind of sees your life and judges everything, like you said,
Yeah.
on your children. And, being a pastor's kid for them is kind of tough and, all of those things.
Yeah.
And I cared way too much what people thought. I mean, looking back, I cared way too much, and that's one of the lessons that I've learned that my children and their feelings and knowing that I love them no matter what should have been way more important than what other people thought about me as a parent. So I have learned that I had a lot of pride that I really needed to deal with. And even my daughter, when, you know, we found out she was pregnant, when she told us she was pregnant, I remember that just devastating feeling and that thought of, oh my gosh, what are people in the church going to say? What are they going to think about me?
Hmm.
I was
Yeah.
honestly, this is terrible to say, and I'm like shamed by it, but I was more concerned with what the people were going to think or say about me as a parent, that I was not the person that they thought I was or that I should be, than what my daughter was facing and going through. I mean,
Hmm.
she's unmarried, she's 19, now she's pregnant. Like she was terrified, you know?
Yeah.
I, she should have been my number one main concern. And I have so many regrets. Honestly, I have so many regrets
Yeah.
about how I handled the situation.
Yeah.
And so, that's a big thing to learn, that you think you're a good parent. And also my expectations of God. And, if I do everything right, I'm going to church faithfully. I'm serving. I don't let my kids listen to bad music or watch the movies and TV shows that everybody else is watching that are terrible for you. And, I'm praying with them at night. We're reading devotions. We're, doing all the things that you're supposed to do to be a good Christian
Hmm.
family. I'm going to have godly children. And that's just not the case all the time. And so when things happened, I really questioned God. I was like, I don't understand, God. Like, what did I do? What did I do wrong that like you're punishing me this way?
Yeah.
You know? And it felt like a punishment at the time. But no, that it was me, my, I thought I was this wonderful parent, but looking back, oh, I could have, if I could just get a do over,
Yes, yes,
Changed
yes,
so
indeed.
many things. Oh,
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think one of the things that I came to, if for me to wrestle with that mom guilt, because that is such a real thing. I mean, I think there was a book out that said something about Mount Guilt more.
oh gosh.
The moms, if you ever feel the need to be guilty, just be a mom for a couple of days.
Yes, absolutely.
There's plenty of things to go, oh man. But I remember having a discussion with one of my kids, and it's saying, I probably, looking back, I didn't always handle everything as well as I wish I had, but I was doing the best I could with what I had at the time,
Yes.
whether that was information, because there were times where I had wrong information. I
Mhm.
had information that was not accurate. And in some cases, I just hadn't learned that coping skill. Or some days it was just because I was exhausted and I don't have any coping skills when I'm exhausted.
Yes.
So there are times when we look back and go, oh, I wish I'd handled that differently.
Mhm.
But I do believe I did the best I could with what I had, even if it
Mhm.
wasn't very good in the moment.
Yeah.
But I also said I never ever made a decision knowingly going, oh, this is really gonna, well, maybe it
Mhm.
would hack off my kids, but I really thought that it was what was best for them
Yes,
with
absolutely.
what I had. And my kids have said that they didn't agree with some of our choices and our decisions and how we handled some things. And I'm like, that's
Mhm.
okay. But they never doubted our love for them.
Mhm.
So I kind of like, I will take that as a win because I know
Yeah.
that I messed up. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm flawed and there's things that I've learned and I'm still learning about me and
Mhm.
myself and how I handled it.
Yes.
But also I can see too when your kid comes home and with news like that, it's like a kick in the gut. And it's like, I need time to kind of
Mhm.
process this myself. And please give me a little bit of grace for my initial poor reaction if I've come around pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So because I'm human too. So
Mhm.
I think it's
Yeah.
important to give ourselves a little bit of grace, learn from it.
Oh, absolutely. And my daughter, even now, we're good now. We had a rough road there for quite a few years. A lot of things, when you make one
Yeah.
decision, it kind of snowballs and
Yeah.
spirals, and it was quite a mess for a while. I said the Holbrook story in my book has a way happier, prettier ending and process than what we went through. And so for my daughter and I now to be friends and for her to say, you're the best mom ever. And,
Yeah.
I know that everything you did out of love and you thought it was the best. And, for her to love me and for us to forgive each other and to move forward with relationship, that's redemption through,
Yeah.
I mean, the mess. I mean, there were such horrible times and her screaming, I hate you, and, you know, all the things. And I didn't like her very much either at the time.
I love you, but I don't like you very
I
much.
know, I know, I don't like you right now. But yeah, redemption is a beautiful thing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that there's so many different themes about the forgiveness and redemption and working through prodigals and pride and a lot of self-reflection. And
Mhm.
one of the themes is about the identity.
Mhm.
And that was something that you kind of went through and had to work through as a young adult.
Yes.
And what was that situation where you really had to kind of go, okay, where is my identity?
Yeah. So growing up, I always felt like I didn't really fit in my family.
Mm,
Um, I don't know why. I even asked my mom one time if I was adopted, because I just felt like I didn't fit with everybody else, and I couldn't explain it. But then when I was around 23 years old, I found out shocking news that my dad who raised me was not my biological father.
mm.
And so when you find out something like that out of the blue, at first it's like, well, that explains a lot, explains because I would, growing up, some family members would say, where did you get that nose? So I have this little pug nose, and nobody in the family had that nose. And so as a kid, I'm like, I don't know. That's kind of a weird thing to ask a kid. Where'd you get that nose? So those,
Picked
maybe
it up
those,
at the grocery store.
I know, right? So those questions kind of, I think, put thoughts in my mind or doubt in my mind that I did belong with my family. So then when I found out that news, I'm like, okay, well then who am I and where do I come from? And who is my biological father? Do I look like him? Does he have a pug nose? And like all these things. And then you start thinking, okay, I was conceived out of sin, not love. I was a mistake. My mom didn't intend to have me. It was a mistake that she made with somebody else. And here I am. And like every time she looked at me, did she regret, having me? And, all of those things that just go through your mind. The enemy just wants to really,
Yeah.
keep playing with that and making you feel like, nope, God doesn't love you. He didn't intend for you to be born. You're a mistake. So I really, had to wrestle through that and just go to God and say, am I a mistake? God, did you really intend for me to be born? And, going to the scriptures and where he says, I knew you before you were born. I formed you in your mother's womb, and I'm not a mistake. I'm not a mistake. No matter that I was conceived in sin, that I was not per se wanted by this couple who had me. The man, my biological father, that didn't even know about me, that I was his. I mean, he knew at the time there was a chance that he might have a child, but he never followed up or asked about it or anything like that.
Wow.
So after this happened, I did meet him one time, just to get my questions answered, medical history and that kind of thing. And but there was no aha. Now I feel like I belong. Now I have my answers. Now I know who I am. There was none of that when I met him, so it didn't fix that. So only God, only God fixed that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he can fix so many other things. And in regards to the identity and some of the other things that we've talked about, one of the things that has come up for me strongly is how important it is that we do share our stories and how needed it is for individuals and women to use our voices, use our skills, and use the talents and the passions that God has placed in our heart and use them because they are so needed and so valuable in this world. And as he kind of worked you through this process with the writing and the fiction and then this story and editing it, what would you say to encourage someone else to pursue that passion that God has placed in their heart?
Well, I'm a firm believer, like you just said, our stories matter. And we have a lot we can do, a lot we can say that will help someone else. And so, all the trials and the things we go through, God can use those. He does not waste our hurts. And if we are willing to be transparent and to be vulnerable and to tell our stories like you're talking about, because as I said, a lot of this book is based on true things in my life. They make a difference. They can help people. So if you have a passion in your heart that God is calling you to, don't turn away from it. And also, it's never too late to do that thing, for God that he's calling you to do. I didn't start writing until I was 55 years old. And
that's so young, and I'm younger every day.
I know it seems young now that I'm 62, but so I didn't start this journey until 55. But when you surrender that passion to God, and it's something He's calling you to, He's going to equip you for it, and He's going to bless you in His time and in His way. It might not be on our timetable or in the way we think, but
yeah,
He'll be with you through it. So pursue it. I encourage you to just do it.
Yeah, just do it. Awesome. And Deena, if somebody wants to find your book, they want to connect with you, your ministry, what is the best way for them to connect with you?
You can find everything on my website. It's DeenaAdams.com. That's DEENA, DeenaAdams.com. All my social media, newsletter subscription. You get a little freebie novelette there for that. So I'd love to connect with people there.
Okay, wonderful. Well, Dina, we will encourage people to go out and read Stronger Than the Storm. And I tell you, I cruised through it, and it read just like a real family that I could have known. And certain elements of it are very much related to as
Uh-huh.
well. So, best wishes on that. Look forward to your next one. And thanks so much for spending time with us here today.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to share. I really appreciate it.